While labor or land or even skills or even innovation can be bought by taking people, etc., values cannot be bought. It has to be nurtured, it has to be institutionalized, it has to be enforced, and while enforcing, you need to do the consequence management. That is action for violations of corporate conduct or ethics. In our lives, we are guided and misguided in this world on the directions that we need to follow to achieve success. As times go by, many of us begin to make compromises on what we really believe in. We all need a guiding light, and that guiding light should be our ethics and values. Let me assure you from my many years of experience that success achieved or gained unethically or by unfair means will not last. It is transient and will eventually bring your downfall, or that company's downfall, or that institution's downfall, sooner or later. And these days we find it happens even sooner. Do not therefore get on a tiger from which you cannot dismount without being eaten. To me, the real issue is whether you need to be flexible and you need to be non-compromising. In these dynamic days where things change often, marketplaces also change very often, competition is high, one has to be flexible. There is a very thin line of difference between flexibility and compromise. Flexibility is extremely important and necessary for success in a fast-changing world like ours today. But compromise on fundamental principles, values, ethics, and standards of behavior cannot be accepted. So this thin line of difference between flexibility and compromise is extremely critical to be either ethical and governed by values or not. So this difference, I think we all need to understand. It comes from a lot of experience, it comes from a lot of anecdotes, and it also comes from the way we have analyzed and internalized our own things. I am a very strong believer in the value system. I have worked in a company of 130 years of history, which is Bosch. It was started in 1888 or something like that by a single man called Robert Bosch. He lent his name to that company, and its value systems are renowned world over. I would like to quote Robert Bosch. In 1920s or 1930s, he said, "In the long term, an honest and fair approach to doing business will always be the most profitable one. The business world holds such an approach in much higher esteem than is generally believed or acknowledged." This is his quote in the 1920s and 1930s. We have all seen many companies, right from Enron in the world to our own homegrown Satyam in Hyderabad, or our own Kingfisher Airlines also in Bangalore. My earlier company, Hindustan Unilever, is also known for its values and strong foundation. In fact, when I joined Levers in my early 20s, they used to send us, all the management trainees have to go to a place called ITA. ITA is a dacoitry infested back of beyond in Uttar Pradesh. And we were to spend 90 days there. And we have to live with a village there, in a village with a village family there. And in these 90 days after our MBA, after our CA, or after our IIT graduation, we have to spend 90 days. And there is nothing to do with business. We don't have to get the milk and then process the milk and make some dairy products, which was what Eta factory was doing for Hindustan Lever. But we have to work with the farmers, with the villagers, and do a good job in that 90 days and show a project report. And that project report invariably involved either helping a farmer to dig a well in his home, or to get some cows and to maximize his productivity, or to bring some electricity from a far off distance to his home, or to build some new classes in the school, some kind of a worthwhile project within 90 days. What has really helped these management trainees in those 90 days, in the formative years of a corporate life, they will never forget even after 40 years in corporate life. And that really grounded a person to understand the difficulties, to understand the needs, to understand the way they behave, they practice, etc. It's like our moral science education in our schools. And in the moral science education, we all are taught how to cross a road, how to look left and how to look right, and then follow the traffic rules, etc. Similar ones, what do you have to do to be a good citizen in the life in which you are going to embark upon, is what is being taught in these 90 days of management training at Eta in Uttar Pradesh. Same way, Bosch has got many such systems. To me, every person, every society, every family has values. Values can and should provide guidance. The sum of all values by which a person forms, by which a person lives, forms the personality of that person. The character of that person is formed by these values. Living continuously by their own values makes people predictable. So predictability is extremely important. And predictability creates trust. This also applies to companies, and that is exactly what Robert Bosch believed in. Robert Bosch gave the company its name and created values that will even apply today. And he has said about 80 years ago, 90 years ago, I have always been guided by the principle that it is better to lose money than trust. Trust of employees, trust of customers, trust of society. So some of these values are so ingrained in this corporate life. I wanted to also share with you one more example of Hindustan Unilever. Immediately after Eta 90 days training, then we are posted to some factory, either in Chikmagalur or in Haldia, for example, in West Bengal, or in Silvassa in Gujarat, wherever it is. We go there. And these are not metropolitan towns. These are normally small villages, small towns. And we used to interact with many excise collectors, because we are big factories churning out a lot of products, and they all have to be excise cleared and duties to be paid, etc. And I used to meet many of the excise officials who are actually sitting in our office, because there is no other office, there is no other business in that village. And they all used to tell how happy they are, because in other big places where there is so much of pulls and pressures and temptations that Dr. Nagendra alluded to, these guys are saying that we are working for 9 hours, 10 hours a day, an honest day, and we can have a sound and stable sleep at the night because we haven't done anything wrong, but we only do correct things. So such is the value these companies earlier brought into this country. And that is why many of these companies, compared to their competitors or compared to their counterparts, command a higher valuation, either in terms of market capitalization or in terms of price earning multiples. Because honesty leads to predictability, predictability leads to trust, and trust leads to confidence in that company. The centerpiece of ethics and values is integrity. General Saab touched on that. Broadly, integrity refers to the quality of a person's character. From integrity flows not only ethical behavior, but also many other characteristics which are so important to professional and personal success. One such characteristic which comes to my mind is dependability. How can an organization entrust someone with responsibilities when he or she is not dependable? How can a man or a woman trust one as a life partner when you cannot be dependent upon? Forget others. Without integrity, even you will not respect yourself. Integrity is doing what you say you are going to do, keeping your promises, being a person of your word. Basically, it's all about commitment. Fortunately, our integrity is not fixed at birth. Wealth is perhaps sometimes fixed at birth, even sometimes intellect is fixed at birth. But integrity is not fixed. This enables our own self-development, and we will soon experience this life in our lives. And this is how I think institutions like educational institutions like what Dr. Nagendra talked about can really make a person to achieve that kind of an integrity or character. It is also not the achievement of the goal or the success that one achieved in his life. What is important is how these challenges were overcome in fair means or in unfair means. Fairness creates respect as well, in addition to dependability and trust. If we are habitual traffic offenders, do we have the right to blame chaotic traffic conditions on the streets in Bangalore? If we don't follow, how do we have the right to question the chaotic conditions on the road? Since the younger generation is not afraid to ask questions, to challenge the status quo, it becomes even more important that as we now step into the professional life, particularly for students here, we have to have a clarity and a better belief in our own value systems. In this instant, fast-changing professional space where things fly at the speed of light, the values can be a compass, it can be a guiding light, and it will all help us to keep us grounded. This is how I see value and I see ethics in our organization. We have seen many cases where companies last for 100 years, 150 years, 200 years. And where we have also seen many companies which have been very successful, highly profitable, highly respected, but it takes 1 minute or 1 second or one action by one person to bring that reputation totally destroyed. It therefore takes time to build, it doesn't take time to destroy. Therefore, institutionalization of ethics and values, like General Singh said, very important. It's not one person's responsibility alone. It has got to be institutionalized. Everyone has to be practicing that. The second important thing is enforcement. I think in India there are no lack of laws or regulations or legal framework. We have enough or more than enough of it. In fact, we have plethora of laws everywhere. The problem is enforcement. And this is, I think, a very important subject which I think we can deliberate on another day or another subject. And the third thing is consequence management. Big companies, successful companies, don't tolerate lack of values, lack of ethical behavior. Zero tolerance is not just, it doesn't just remain on paper, it is actually practiced. And that tone has to be set right at the top. He is accountable, and he has to be consistent, and he has to be consequent in his action. Without this, values and ethics will not thrive. With that, I end my discussion. Thank you very much.